our environment and the stresses. Our environment and the spaces, how are they related? Okay. Then number 2, in our mind and body, can psychological issues really cause physical illnesses? First was person and the situation where we live in a certain environment. Then number 2, our mind and our bodies. Then number 3, our diversity and universality. To what extent do different people respond to their stresses? Many of us have experienced this one. I'm stressed, I'm stressed, I'm stressed, I'm stressed out, I'm stressed up. So how do different people respond to this I am stressed bit of it? Just here to explain what is stress. See those pictures there? They give us usually what happens when we are stressed. Our lives are all a mess, okay? But remember that usually stress is different from fear, is different from frustration, okay? So basically, stress is a response to events we think that may be challenging and also threatening maybe our existence, okay? Now, for example, in psychology, stress is just a demand that is made on an organ, on us as people. So we as people, there's that demand that is there, and we have to work to produce or give results, okay? So we have to find a way to adopt and cope, or even adjust. So that is it, what stress. It's a demand that is brought up. The money, we need this, we need that, we need that. It's a demand that we need to adopt, okay? Then maybe for our layman, we feel stressed when we're overburdened. You know, when something is disturbing us, we are very, 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 very stressed. You can even slap someone right there. Yeah, sometimes so our management is not easy sometimes. So sometimes the sources of our stresses are different. We can have the environmental demands. Like I said, it's a demand that requires us to cope up with, especially when the demand is available. We ought to find a way how to cope with it. So we have the good stress, by the way, it's called eustress, which is quite helpful. Helps us to focus and do things efficiently. It's called eustress. Then there's what they call harmful stress. This one is in a long time. It happens at a very, very long time. It's prolonged and it's not really good because it injures our bodies. Then all of us have what we call the daily hustles. Our hustles, you know, usually everyone is called a hustler these days. I don't know if you're all stressed in that manner, because daily hustles are stress bringers. Time, you're like, oh God, I'm hit, I'm late. Time, for example, you're working on, you have pressure, you have presentations to do, you have household, like at home, you have issues, health, you're hustling to make health better. Work at work, you're hustling to make things work, like paperwork here and there. You're trying to make your way through financial responsibilities, the hustles, environmental hustles, a number of hustles that we have. Usually they present as very, very threatening and harmful, okay? So daily conditions and experiences that are threatening are usually called daily hustles. They happen on a daily basis. They threaten our lives. Security, work, what if it goes, what if it's their time? We're always on tension, okay? So we have what we call uplifts. This is just a difference between the hustles. We usually like saying, I'm hustling, I'm a hustler, meaning you're having these, experiencing threatening and harmful conditions, though we misuse that word a lot of times. So hustles are usually harmful to our bodies, actually. They're usually not easy, so we keep saying, I'm a hustler, I'm so and so, and it's very common with us, the youth, talking about being hustlers and all that. And on the uplifts, it's the opposite, actually. Uplifts, these are pleasant daily conditions and experiences. They are pleasant, so they keep us going every time. Your lunch is an uplift on the hustle. We don't hustle lunch. Usually lunch is very good, and also a meal or two of friends are our uplifts many a time. And they're very important in our daily living, okay? So as we talk about stress and anxiety, let us notice that the good part is called the uplift, okay? And just like the third statement here says that hustles are linked to psychological variables, and such as nervousness, worrying, inability to get started, feelings of sadness. Those are hustles all in line. They are connected to so the hustles, the difference, the way we take our lives on a daily, they affect our feelings a lot. We worry about whether we'll start, we feel sad a lot and lonely many a time. And also changes in life, good or bad, can also contribute to producing stress. So we're looking at things that cause us stress, our stress factors. So nature of stress. So what is stress really meant? What does it explain as? So here we see that stress is usually very, very personal. Why is it very personal? The way one person interprets their stressing factor is not the way the other person interprets their stressing factor. Usually, if a person doesn't get a job, he thinks that is because of his inability, incompetence, or maybe their poor academic background. That can even cause them stress. So that is how the person is interpreting the event. Are we together? But if this person or another person says, basically, maybe the job was pre-filled, it was already slated for someone, maybe it wasn't destined for me. Sometimes it's like, oh, this is meant for the such and such a people. The way they respond, they actually usually not stressed at all in case they don't get that job. But usually stresses are how we interpret events. So if you interpret an event as depending on your inability, on your physical inability, that's usually a problem. So how we look at stress is dependent basically on how we interpret and also our beliefs about that situation. So I hope we are getting that idea. Stress is very personal, okay? One stressful event to the other person may not be the same to the other person. So how we interpret, some may think doing things on the last hour for them is good. Others doing things last hour, it is their usual time. Are we together? So let us think that's how we can interpret stress. It's different for different people. So among the different sources, I think we talked about them. Behavior, some events that are inherent in the society, in our families, and also everyday hassles that we go through. So just here are a few types of stressors that we experience in our lives. Now we have cataclysmic events, for example, COVID. These ones are general, okay? They affect very many people at the same time. For example, COVID time was a big stressor to the whole world. We had that. We can have personal stresses and also background stresses. So background are basically the daily things that we go through. You're in traffic, you failed to get food that day, you failed to, make a living for that day. That stresses you. Then there are personal stresses that we know, personal like maybe in family, could be among your friends, could be immediate, nearest to you. Such can be personal stresses. Now, away from stress, there's something called change. Okay, change. Change are usually stressful events. Actually, every stressful event involves change, if you notice. Things that cause us stress require us to change. You're changing maybe a location, you're stressed, how will I move, how will I do that? You're changing from being maybe less educated from the usual, okay? So you get stressed. So every stressful event involves a matter of change. So basically, change can cause stress. So the more change required, the more stress. Are we together? The more stressing factor. Like we said earlier on, these are just the events that happen in our lives, and they're based on how we interpret them. Okay, the stressing factors, the stressing events, the demands in our lives that require a reform or an adoption. Okay, so these are the everyday stresses. Sometimes that the effects of stress sometimes are minor, sometimes are major, depending. Okay, can cause annoyance, irritation, frustrations among the rest, and also pressure. May also conflict, actually. That is what stress brings. Now, another issue that stress brings sometimes is frustration. Whenever you strike a goal and you can't reach that goal, you get frustrated. Are we together? This is not the stress. Stress is the demand to adapt to something. But then when stress comes in, one of the effects is this frustration we're talking about here. That you have that feeling like you want to maybe get the best grades at campus, or in your family you want to reach a certain goal, but then you fail. That feeling is called frustration. You get frustrated often. Okay, so these are just circumstances that result in failure or failure of the need or motive to be satisfied. So you get frustrated because you cannot strike that goal you want to reach. Okay, that's frustration basically. So when one cannot immediately or directly satisfy all their wishes, they experience frustration. Its nature, basically, it's because of a block. There's something that blocked your goal. And this happens very much in human beings as well. And usually the potentialities for frustration are greater in us, the people, actually, especially those who are working in big places. For example, people who are living in remote areas, they have no pressure. They have no frustrations. Their life is their life, and wakes up in the morning, goes and digs, comes out, and eats their food, which they dug, and then that's their life. There's nothing to, there are no big goals to strike, okay? But now, for example, us here, we are living in a competitive world, we're living in a different kind of setting, so you always want to get something. For the ladies, sometimes the ladies' side, they want to get this guy with this kind of qualities, then they get frustrated when they don't get that person, okay? They get so annoyed at everyone, just saying. Then some want to get maybe their dream weddings, they get frustrated because they didn't reach the kind of goals they want. So I'm just trying to describe how this demand, the stress, brings in frustration, okay? So, and among the other causes of frustration are listed above, as you can see. So I'm getting through a bit quicker because of time. I want us to be on time. We shall share this presentation in the group that we may go through in our specific times. So we have, this is just the circle or the tabulation of the frustration. Sources include delays, lack of resources. You make a loss at work, you make a loss maybe in the family, will cause you frustration. You have no resources to do what you want, you're always frustrated because you can't strike your goals, okay? Delays in traffic, you're late, you want to reach work by 8, but still the delays get you frustrated. Failure and also discrimination. So we're just looking at these different contexts. We looked at change, we have looked at frustration, okay? And then stress. These are all under stress, okay? We have something called conflict. Conflict. These are still under the breakdown of stress. Conflict here, when we usually have, what's a conflicting situation? When you have demands, maybe opportunities or things that you want to do, but they're all happening at the same time, okay? They're all there at the same time and you have to make a choice. So you have conflicting loyalties, basically. So you have conflicting issues. So basically you have to choose between two things, and the types are those. We have approach. We have avoidance, then approach, avoidance. Let me just give us what these ones mean, actually. Approach, these ones, you have a conflicting situation, for example. We're looking at things that bring us stress and eventually can cause us long-term stress, which may cause something wrong, something with our bodies. What we're trying to expound here is that the different things we go through in our lives, even in our Christian life, okay, can impair how best we reach out to other people, okay? For example, we said frustration, we said the changes, and then maybe in our bodies, in our environments, they affect us as well, just like the conflict here. So approach basically is a type of conflict where you have goals which are both appealing. You want two, but you need to choose just one of them, but you want them both. They are both very nice, but you have to choose just one. I won't give very much examples on this one. Just imagine, you'll remember in a situation you've been through where you had to choose between two things that are really very good for you. That's one. Then number two, avoidance, conflict. So another conflict. Here, you are in a situation where you have to choose, but the choices you make are both not very, very, very nice. I gave an example here, choosing a lower paying job over staying unemployed. Still, the payment is very, very low, may not even satisfy your needs, and also staying unemployed. That can cause stress. So in a conflict, but both are avoidable. Avoidance, you want to avoid both, but you have to choose between two of them. Then we have avoidance, approach, avoidance, yes, where you have a conflict. The same thing you want has both a negative and a positive effect to your life, okay? For example, taking a dream job, but it doesn't pay you well. You're following your passion, but you don't get good money out of it. Or a good paying job, but you don't have enough free time or even freedom to do different things, okay? that you would wish to do, or having to relocate, or even leave your family. So it's a good goal, but has two things you have to choose, either to take or not. Yeah, still looking at stress. Sometimes we impose stress onto ourselves, and it depends on how we see challenges, by the way. Some people see challenging situations as ways to become successful, as success rather than failure, and others don't. Others, they just create a stress, okay? They just create their own stress away from the usual events, okay? But through defeating their own beliefs, they're like, no, whatever they told me I am supposed to be, maybe in my family, we shall never drive, or we shall never make it anywhere, or we shall never have any successful person. So the person creates their own demand that they have to reach by defeating such things. So it's a self-imposed stress. Others feel like, oh God, this is very what? Very stressful, so I will fail, I will not handle it, I will not manage it. So such kind of things. Okay, we have a few minutes as we finish. This presentation, basically we'll just talk about stress because of time. And what I promise, we shall share the presentation in groups so that we can always take a peek. We can all of us take a peek. Thank you. So the stress and individuals, how they react to the stress factors. We have optimists and pessimists. Usually people cope better if they are an optimist. Others who are not, it's the other way. The pessimist people are usually likely to lie based on their failure a lot. Okay, so I don't know which person you are. Are you very optimistic or you're pessimist? Okay. Okay. We're just going to look at how to cope with the stress, and then we shall conclude with that. So ways to cope with the stress, we can set our own efforts to change the uncomfortable situations. Okay, that is one. You just be intentional about changing the situation, which is very uncomfortable. Okay, and also problem-oriented and focused on immediate issues. Okay. So sometimes you choose to confront, compromise, or withdraw from that, depending. You confront a problem, the stress, you can choose to compromise and just let it be, okay, and just go on with the current situation, or you can choose to withdraw, okay, and then just let it go. That is also very much there. The defensive one is not very good. Usually, it is just lying oneself to think that you have gone through the stress. Rather, you live in denial. For example, really live in denial, which is very bad. Repress, you push away the thoughts back, yet which you have to confront and get done with something. Otherwise, the repression always comes back with life. Others project. They are stressed and they just abuse and fight and beat other people because they are stressed. How do we handle our stress? Is it just defensive, or we implore the best way? Others do displacement. They displace, and instead of doing this, they do the other. So they displace their thoughts, such as to take away the stress. So how we react to the different stresses is very much important. Like other people do, you see normally when they're stressed, they revisit the negative emotions and events and instead cry more instead of choosing the other way around. This is common to pessimistic people. Okay. Yeah. So this is just a difference between stress and fear. Usually in stress, like we said, you want to do something to take away the demand. But in fear, here we have flight mode, fight or fight. Okay, flight or fight mode. Usually the body tends to respond to these attacks by either fleeing or fighting. That's how our body responds to stress. Okay, so there's what you call stages of adapting to stress. We have an alarm stage. This is the first stage where we notice our stressors. Number two, after noticing the stressors, what do? Our bodies get prepared to fight this stressor. That is the different ways I will choose to cope with our stressing events. Okay. And lastly, if we don't cope with them, we get exhaustion. We get so wasted. We all look so ugly sometimes. We look very pale because we have failed to resist the stress at its easy level. Okay. But stress has an issue with our heart, actually. It contributes to coronary heart diseases. So please, if you enjoy being stressed, it is very risky for you. Always try the better way, the best means to reduce stress. Otherwise, you'll get issues with your heart, and it won't be good for you as a Christian, as a follower of God. These are just some ways we can reduce our stress. Okay, exercise, okay, as much as possible, and allow yourself to relax. This is our last slide today. And social support. Just a minute. Oh, yes, there too. Social support. Seek social support from other members. Okay, when you're stressed, don't be alone. Religious practices are very much important. They really help depending on what you believe. Okay, basically we have the Bible, and there's a lot of encouraging messages there. So reaching out and giving to others, it can help to reduce the stress. Be more outgoing and outdoing. Do outdoors, and then it will be very helpful. And also using the effective coping strategies. Okay, like we said earlier, please adopt healthy lifestyles in case you are stressed. Don't resort to drinking. Just exercise and have a healthy diet. It will be very much important for your stress coping. Okay. Yeah, and the different extremes of stress and also not very important. We should always try to avoid them, because if we don't, we usually go into extreme stress, such as unemployment, if you're not doing anything, divorce and separation, bereavement, catastrophes, and threatening, maybe a personal attack, someone threatening your life. They usually cause a lot of stress to us. So I pray that we always try to avoid or find ways how we can always go through these stress bringers, so we can be better people, actually. This is just a post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. You've heard about this, when it is extreme, people, and after a very, very long time, very, very severe events, okay? We always should try our best not to have several stressful events. Otherwise, we'll have PTSD, and it really affects ourselves, okay? Our mental and psychological development. So always you should seek recovery and treatment in cases of stress. Otherwise, we will always go into a set of PTSD. Yeah, so it involves us being well adjusted. Sorry, I'm just going through the slides. Some are similar of what we had already discussed prior. Okay, so I think we shall stop here. And in case of any questions, we can share it in the group, and we shall talk about them and regarding stress. But the most important one, let us always seek psychological help, and always find the best ways first to deal with stressing factors, so that we can have a better health and become better disciples of Christ, to have a clear mind in making decisions. With that, may the good Lord bless you, and we will proceed to the next presentation.